Hey guys, it's Will from EDM Tips. Today we have got another session of Feedback Friday recorded last Friday with my co-coach Neel. There is some fantastic tracks that you guys sent in, so thank you so much for taking part. If you do want to get feedback on your tracks in next Feedback Friday, then you can click the link below, join one of the courses over at edmtips.com. That will automatically give you access to the EDM Tips Academy community where you can submit your tracks each week for feedback from the community and from Neel. So without further ado, let me hand you over to Neel, and this is what we got cooking. There are a few students here from our 8-week EDM production masterclass as well, and see if you can guess which ones they are.
I'm stoked to be back. I'm stoked to get back in it. And, with that, let's go ahead and kick things off. We've got a lot to get going through today, and I couldn't be more excited. So not only are we getting into these feedback tracks, and I've taken a listen to some of these, and they are sounding so good. So not only am I, pumped for that, but then at the end of this hour, starting at then 12 p.m. Pacific time, so 1 hour from now, we are going to be hosting a live beat lab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you guys, anyone who's, tuning in, you're welcome to follow along or just watch and kind of learn some tips and tricks along the way. But we're going to go, it's going to be a 6-step process, each one about 10 to 15 minutes per step, and I'm going to walk you through the creation of a full beat start to finish. So definitely get some cool tricks, a very creative, kind of fun time. The goal is not to make anything good, it's to make something super fun and super creative. So should be a blast. I'm stoked to do it. I'm stoked to see what some of you guys come up with. Of course, there's going to be no pressure to share, but anyone who does want to at the end can drop a SoundCloud link or something in the chat, and I'm going to have a listening party here. We're going to just have a blast. We're going to make it a great Sunday. As my thanks to you guys again for, your help on Friday, for coming back here today. Let's just get to it. I'm super, super stoked. So let me go ahead and jump over, guys. Again, we're going to kick it off with the feedback review. Like I said, there's a lot of great stuff in here. And normally, I'll go in the order of whoever got, missed out on the previous session. They'll be up first and stuff. Today is going to be a little bit different. I'm giving a special thanks to the people that stuck around on Friday and helped me get the stream sorted out. So I've got those guys slotted up first. Then we're going to get to the people, that might have missed a previous session. And then we'll get to, whatever's left. As you can see, there's a decent number up here. But hey, guys, I'm here to hang out all Sunday. I say let's get through all of these, If someone submitted a track, let's give them some good feedback here, right? So with that, let's go ahead and kick off. The first one, we've got Carl F, K2F, and Fading. So guys, if you do happen to be tuning in right now and your track comes up, if there's a specific moment or anything you want me to listen to, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to just kind of use my best judgment. I'm going to be doing my best to play like about a minute and a half of any given track. So I'll, look at the waveforms and just kind of figure it out with from there. So let's go ahead and kick it off. We got, again, Carl, K2F, Fading. Pick us up a little. Awesome little atmospheres and textures here. So I'll say, right off the bat, I think the kick, the sub end of the kick could probably be a little bit stronger. Let's skip ahead and see what's going on in this kind of middle section. Piano. Yeah, completely agree, Jack. That reverb is just crushing it. And now let's skip ahead. Let's get a little bit more at the end here. Awesome. All right, let's get into some feedback here. Yeah, Jack is dropping some great comments in the chat. Lovely reverb, full of energy. Yaniv, I completely agree. Great track here going on. So a couple of things that are, really working with it. I think the groove of this at its core is working really solid, and the vibe of every single element is perfectly in line with the rest of the track. Right? Every sound that's in there is supposed to be in there, and there isn't, excess wasted stuff. So really great job with the composition on that, on that front. From a writing standpoint, I think the one thing that would take this to the next level is just a little bit more kind of consistency, within any given section. What I mean by that is right now your synths, those sequencers and stuff are bouncing around and doing a lot. And while it gives us a really, really nice set of, an emotional journey with the different chords and stuff, it was hard for me to, actually sing something back or remember what was about to happen at kind of any given point. So if you could just get a little bit more repetition in there, kind of melodically and harmonically, I think that this track is going to be an absolute heater. Now, from the mixing end, I think the biggest thing that I would focus on is weighting up your low end and your low mids. Your high ends, like, by no means is it like too bright or aggressive or harsh or anything, but the relative weight was a little bit more stacked towards those high end textures because you have a lot of bright synths, you have those bright percussion and all that sort of stuff. So get some more weight, get some saturation on the bass, on the other kind of low mid instruments, and I think you're gonna, just have an absolute heater here. If anyone else has anything they want to drop for Carl, feedback wise, drop it in the chat. Otherwise, guys, let's give it up for Carl. Great track here, really stellar energy. Like I said from the beginning, great groove, great vibe. Good stuff here, Carl. Unfortunately, I'm seeing Mike McClure is saying it's frozen. Hopefully, yeah, let's give it a refresh. Good to hear that it is not for all. Thank God, give me a little heart attack there. All right, so this next one's coming up from J Maru here, Joseph. So we've got Kurahi. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that one correctly. J Maru, I'm stoked to see what this is all about. Hopefully, you're with us. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to give it a start. I might jump ahead. Let's see what it is. Awesome movement and texture right from the start. We have heard this one a little bit before, Jack. We got some, improvements and stuff on it, and man, this is sick. Everyone else dancing in their chairs like crazy right now, like I cannot help it. Let's see what he's got going on in the kind of middle and the end here. Way to take the drums, way to take the movement out of this section. Every good song like this needs a second for you to just kind of sit back, relax, catch your breath before getting right back into it with that high energy dancing. We got a lighter up in the air right now. Great stuff. Let's see what we have coming up near the end of the track. Little layer. Super neat. All right, guys, I think we can all agree this track is just absolutely killer. But as with pretty much anything out there, there's always a little something that we can do to, take it up another notch. So, Joseph, especially from the last time, I think some of the things that are really working now is that groove is perfect. Like, I could not stop dancing. Even if I tried to, I wouldn't have been able to. Not that I would have ever wanted to try to stop dancing to that track. So really good job massaging everything, getting them into those kind of pockets of each other, finding layers and, loops that are working with each other, writing those melodies with that groove in there. Absolutely stellar job. Another huge win, I think, right from the start, you had that really lovely texture, and kind of throughout the song, we always had these really nice, interesting textures, so our ears were constantly kept refreshed. Now, in terms of a couple of suggestions for improvement here, I'd say the first thing is actually kind of the opposite of what we saw on the last track. With this one, your lows and your low mids are super full, and they're super strong here. Unfortunately, what that means is that the top end wasn't quite carrying the clarity and energy that I needed. Now, don't get me wrong, some of the filtered vibe that you have for a lot of the track works really nice. It keeps things kind of low-key despite that extra movement, but I think we need still just a little bit more high-end, especially in those kind of drums and percussion. Not a ton, again, just a little bit more to give us that kind of, even balance of energy across the frequency field. So I think that's absolutely awesome. Seeing some suggestions for a little bit more sub. I think that if you wanted to get in that low sub and boost that up, you probably could. I would just be careful with doing so because the octave right above that is, so the 100 to 200 hertz range is nice and strong and full there. So, sometimes when we boost the sub, we also end up boosting that 100 to 200 hertz range, and it can become a little muddy, a little boxy and stuff there. So yeah, get that sub up, but just make sure that you're kind of countering it with a little bit of a shelf down right afterwards to keep us from, getting that 100 to 200 range up as well. So really, really stellar track. The one last thing I think I would love to hear in this is just a little bit of evolution melodically at some point near the end of the track. We had that da 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 da, and it kind of played that same pattern throughout the song. If even at like one point during a transition moment, kind of in these end sections, instead of going da da da, it went like da da da, or something else to just keep the listener on their toes for just a moment, I think that'll add just like this nice little refreshed sense to come, finish off that track with. So, guys, give it up for J Maru. If anyone's got anything else to drop it in the chat. Yeah, I completely agree with what Jack just said. Maybe at the end of a phrase, exactly that, right? So, like, when you're getting ready for that next kind of turnaround section, that would be it. All right, sweet guys. 2 phenomenal tracks to start it off. Let's keep it going. Up next, we've got Jack Parker. Hey, you're right up here. We got Enchanted. So let me know if there's a specific moment you want me to play in this. I'll give you a second to drop it in the chat. And if so, otherwise we will get to it in just a moment here. I know I'm working with like a little bit of a delay and lag here too, so you guys are gonna just sit for a second too. All right, so like at 30 seconds. Okay, here's what we got. Great groove again. Yeah, right there with you, Mike. Head bopping indeed. Way to cut the drums out for this little section. Give us a nice little break, but you have the rhythm carrying on with the bass.
Enchanted by your face, I found my perfect place. Don't wake me up. Don't wake.
I think I'd like a little more motion on the filter of that bass line in here.
By now, to always touch the ground, but how I forget.
And that pad has a really nice sound, but it's kind of swallowing up the rest of the mix. I would just lower the volume by a few decibels.
I found my perfect place. Don't wake me up. Don't wake.
Maybe at like moments you can have a utility automation on that pad that brings it up for a second before coming back down to that lower volume.
To always touch the ground.
Let's see what else we got up here. I like how you kind of cut to like the drier drop section here after that really rich and luscious section there. That's going to give us a nice sense of contrast.
Enchanted by your face.
Okay, so the groove, the vibe, the writing of this one, again, just on point. I'm not hearing any tonal issues. I'm not really hearing any, like, extreme muddiness or anything else of the sorts. A couple of things, from an arrangement perspective, I think the first start of this has some really nice kind of evolution and such to it. I like how you get, really, really wet and then really dry here. It kind of seemed, and I know I had to kind of skip through this section, but I think the rest of this song could use a little bit more energy and evolution in that energy. So particularly like in this last section, when that vocal was playing, I felt that the energy was kind of building in the background of the track, and I was wanting another huge drop to kind of finish off this song. But it, instead it kind of just fades out. So I'd play around with maybe having like one more drop after this sort of section to like really, answer that vocal, give us the ultimate peak in energy there. And I think that, that'll take it a lot further just, from a long-term storytelling perspective on that track. One other thing that I would say, so in this particular one, I think get a lot more beef on the sub end. So particularly in the kick and the bass there, I think, anything that we can do to bring up that low end, whether it's some, coloring EQ boosting, using something like the bark of dog, or, maybe just layering in another sub or something else of the sorts. The core of it was there. Like when I bumped up the volume on my sub, I could feel it and it was working really nicely. It was just, it took me bumping up the volume on my sub to get to that point. So just like, approach the mix, see if you can get that low end a little bit heftier. It's a really, really great track, really great vibes, certainly enchanted. Guys, if anyone has anything else for Jack, drop it in that chat. Head bopping and groovy indeed. If you guys have any suggestions, he's in that chat. I'm sure he'd be stoked to hear them. Jack, thanks very much for an awesome track, and let's keep it going. All right, so we got this next one from Eric, or the Kovu in chat, another guy who has just been absolutely vital in getting these Twitch streams up and running smoothly. So thanks very much. He's saying it's not mastered, and he's looking for just general thoughts on it. Awesome. So we got FBI 14. Stoked to hear it. Let me know if there's a specific moment in the track you want me to start and play. Otherwise, I'll be kind of going from the start here. All right, here we go. Great groove and vibe. I really like the way those two different melodies are playing off of each other. You've done a really good job with this, Eric. Sound design on this is on point. I love how you like brought up the energy at the end of that drop, like getting everyone ready, and then you just suddenly take it down. That's like, how we always talk about creating contrast in the drop? It's also important to create contrast after the drop, and you've done exactly that, so great stuff with that. Let's see what we got coming up near the end of the track. Awesome. Great stuff here, Eric. Cool. All right, so another one where the core of the writing is pretty much on point. There's not too much I could change about this, and especially the sound design, like huge shout out to the sound design on that. Super interesting textures. I love how you were playing with bouncing between the different layers of melodies that you had in there. I didn't feel like one layer stole my attention for too long. As soon as I started to get comfortable with one, another layer came in there to kind of take its place or grab my attention. So really, really good stuff with that. From a writing perspective, there was one moment that I kind of noticed right around here where the kind of like arpeggiated melody layer that you have in there. Played like one set of notes that didn't quite gel with like the, chords underneath. Let's see. Right there, it was at like the 48-second mark. There's like one note in there that just doesn't quite align, so just double check that in your MIDI information. Otherwise, like I said, I think the writing is on point. Now, everyone here in the chat is just saying great groove, and I completely agree. I think, the way that melody's, moving against the kick and stuff, and your bass is working really nicely. I love those little pauses that you have, that silence that just kind of catches us off guard for a second. One thing I will say is, for that silence to be as effective as possible, it needs to be special, a special moment in the track. And I think with as many times as you have that kind of stop silence effect, it loses a little bit of that specialness. So, like, especially during the builds, I would get rid of that and just let the beat kind of sustain through that, because that's going to allow the drop to have that much more contrast when you hit it, and then we get that silence for just a moment. So dial back just like the number of times you have those in a couple of locations, and I think that'll be a big help. Let's see, the final thing that I would say is, like everyone else is saying, that groove is really, really spot on. I think the groove of the kick could probably be improved just a little bit. So in these drops, we have like a boom, clap, boom, boom, clap. Instead, maybe try adding a little bit of groove and swing to that kick, playing around with some dotted rhythms. So like boom, boom, clap, boom, boom, clap. There's something else of the sorts, right? So play around with it, but get something a little bit, further away from just that straight quarter note rhythm on the kick. Awesome. All right, guys, if anyone else has any suggestions for Eric, let's drop it in the chat. I think we can all agree that's an absolutely stellar track. Really cool vibes. Again, really cool sound design and groove. Let's give it up for Eric with this FBI 14 track. Awesome stuff. Cool. All right, so this next one, we got Glibber, and I always say that. I look at this. I'm sorry, Glibber. I keep seeing this, and I skip that L, but it's Glibber. I should know that by now. So we got your track. We've got Fragment going on here. I'm stoked to check it out. Let me know again if there's a specific moment you want me to jump to or skip ahead to. Otherwise, let's get it going. Give it a little refresh. Something seems to be up with my SoundCloud link. And here we go. Nice little horn to bring in the song there. Really nice elements in the intro indeed. Agree with Adam Miles' comment here. Till the drop. All right, let's see what we got about 310-ish or so. Another set of great grooves here. How you bring that energy right down, yet simultaneously pick up the pace in this job. So one thing I might suggest is like a little bit of side chaining or additional side chaining on some of these other elements. Like I think your bass is working really nice from that perspective, but the upper kind of elements stay kind of like straight and don't quite bounce up and down as much as the rest of the beat does. So try out a little bit of side chaining on those lead elements. Nothing too much, because it's not like we want that lead to disappear altogether. We just want a little bit more bounce to it. So something very subtle. Awesome. All right, right, great work with this track. Again, the groove is just like really, really solid. Had me bouncing up and down the entire time. You guys are really, learning these lessons well. I'm hearing them come to action and come to life in these tracks. So really, really good stuff with this. Again, the vibe, the sound selection, all working super, super well. I think that comment about sidechaining just kind of is, I would suggest it kind of across your track. So pretty much everything but that main kick and snare pattern or something, consider adding just a little bit of sidechaining on it. And it doesn't need to be more than like a decibel or a decibel and a half of reduction for some of those more important layers, but even just that little bit is going to give us that up and down bounciness that, makes the macro groove of your track really work. Another thing that I would look for is, you did a really great job with these little melodic fills or these new elements that would come in for just a splash in a moment. And, they repeated enough throughout the track that it wasn't too much to take in. So it kept us on our toes, but, it still allowed us to, feel some sense of familiarity in there. The one thing that I would add to that is maybe a little bit of like a drum fill or turnaround and stuff in there as well. So right now, all of those extra little fills and, turnarounds are largely melodic. They have some synth layer coming in, a bass line, an atmosphere, whatever it might be. So yeah, something in there, like especially in the hi-hats, I would say, because those hi-hats are just going at a steady rhythm for a lot of the track. Give it just like that extra little turnaround, maybe take out a couple of the notes at the end of a phrase. Something, if we were to solo and just listen to the drums, we should still feel that, kind of same sense of evolution and growth and pattern that any other element in the track has. So really, really great stuff here. Yeah, if anyone has anything else they want to drop for Glimmer in the chat, please do. Let's give it up for him. Another great vibe, another great track. Let's keep this energy going. All right, so we got Fat Freddy up next. Pharaoh V3 here. Let's see what we got. Love that wide bass. That's super nice. Fat Freddy, I think the sound choice of those violins, the rhythm of it is really solid. They might just be a little too like smooth and legato, have a little too much reverb or a little too much release on them, because I got a little bit of the blurring of the notes in that section. So right there, that crash, really nice to kind of bring in the next section, but it was, it kind of came in a little bit abruptly. Consider something like a reverse swell going into that. Like maybe, take that crash cymbal, reverse it, and just like give us that swell of the first half coming up to it, just so it doesn't, hit us with a sudden hit out of nowhere there. Let's see what we got going on. Let's skip one last time. So one thing I listen out for in this kind of section is right now that violin has a lot of reverb wetness on it. So it feels super far back in the mix. Whereas like our bass line and our drums are sitting nice and far forward and stuff. For that, lead line to really carry the thickness, the energy, and the intention of the track that we're going to need, I would say take out a lot of that reverb and bring it right up to the front with some additional saturation, too. Awesome. So this is really cool. This is a nice combination of styles of music. Like there's a lot of classical writing to the strings and the violins that are in there and stuff. but you've got it over this like very kind of upbeat, sort of techno-y, rhythm and pattern to it. So I think it's a really cool switch up that you've got here. Really cool set of vibes. I think to get it, really fully work, I think we need to bring all of those melodic elements way forward in the mix, get them a lot thicker, and give those the kind of priority. Now, I would say give that lead violin the most priority, and then those kind of low end, I guess broken chord style violas, cellos, whatever those were, give those a little bit less priority because those were fighting for attention over that, lead a little bit. So I would dial those back just a bit. The other thing, one thing I want to call out right from the start of this track, you were giving us like this really nice wide bass. Which, like, normally, that's something we say, hey, avoid, getting wide in that sub end or something else of the sorts. But it's working in this track, one, because it gives us that kind of rumbly vibe, but two, because of the way you've structured the rest of your mix. There isn't really any other low-end information that can compete with that, so it's okay if it's a little bit rumbly and muddy on the sides, because that's the only thing we have to focus on down there. So really cool track. The final thing I'll say in this is, like, in this middle section and then during some of these other sections where you had a few percussion layers playing, the groove of those wasn't quite aligned. Now, the overall feeling, the up and down kind of nature of your track was totally fine, but within those kind of smaller sections, like, let's see. Right here is a good example. Oh, no, it's not. Let's see. Okay, right there. So some of those other percussion layers that are in there just aren't quite tight with it, and we get this little flamminess as a result. Cool, so check out the groove of that. Yeah, I think otherwise everything about this track is really cool. I like this, whole kind of vibe that you've got after Sphinx coming with Farah, giving these, kind of Middle Eastern textures, that sort of stuff. So yeah, absolutely keep that going. Lean into it because that is the, the inspiration of this song. Make sure that those elements are right up front. All right, let's give it up for Fat Freddy in the chat, everyone, and we will keep this train going. So I know this next one's from Yaniv. I know you're in the chat here right now, Yaniv, so please let us know if there's a particular moment you want us to jump to. Stoked to see what you got here with this one. My SoundCloud links just decided to stop working, so I'm going to just refresh it each time and go from there. Drop is on 3:29. Okay, cool. So I'll play a little bit of that. I'll skip ahead to just a little bit before that, and we'll get it going. Nice. Good layers. Awesome. All right, Yaniv. Hey, really great track here. Let's dive straight in. So let's start with this snare that you've got going on here at the end. So right now that snare kind of hits the same energy every time. So one thing I want you to try playing with, so in the beat of 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Your snares are hitting on the 2 and the 4. Leave those 4s as is, but see if you can do something to tighten up the splashiness of the 2s. Because right now we get this boom, pa sort of thing, right? If instead that first one's a little tighter, so it's more like boom, pa, boom, pa, boom, pa, boom, pa. You're going to get a little bit more macro push and pull, a little bit more movement in this track. It doesn't need to be a super drastic change, but, any small amount of tightening up on that beat 2 snare is going to help out a lot. Seeing a couple of other things in the chat here. So one from the Kovu recommending a really light, about 3 decibel sidechain during the drop to the chords. I would agree, and I'd say, add the atmospheres, add all of your layers in there. Let's just get a little bit more kind of up and down motion in the sidechain bounce there. Agreed with Daniel, your mixes are sounding cleaner and cleaner each time. I was able to actually hear and make out everything I needed to in that track. So while there was a little bit of washiness, it wasn't too much and it was appropriate for the genre. So I think really good job on that front. I think the one thing I would focus on for your mixes is getting a little bit more of those low mids kind of, added in and beefed up. So we had a really strong sub end of the track. That kick was thumping. I really liked that sort of thing. But the bass and then, the low end of the chords felt a little bit too filtered out. So try, if you've got filters that are cutting out that low end of a lot of tracks, try adding a little bit back. Like I'm thinking, up to the 100 hertz mark or so. If not, try adding another layer in there that really has a lot of beef and power in that 100 hertz to 300 hertz range. And I think that's going to give you some nice power. Awesome. All right, let's keep this thing going. If anyone's got any other comments or anything else for Yaniv, drop them in the chat. Really, really great stuff here. Keep up that hard work. You're improving. I know I said it last time a couple weeks ago when we first heard your track. Keep that up. You're crushing it. Also seeing in the chat, Ghost Hunter, what's up? You're saying you have some beats, but on YouTube. Question for you, are you part of the EDM Tips Facebook group, or have you taken any of the EDM Tips courses? Feel free to respond in the chat. And I will we'll kind of help out from there. Awesome. All right, so this next one is from Johnny Hale. We've got Find Me version 2. So let's see what we got.
You can find me.
Really cool start. Nice sub drop. Great groove. This one's nice and loud. I'm gonna take it down just a little bit. Love that transition. All right, let's just skip ahead, see what the end of this song's all about real quick. Love that little switch up with the melody. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Nice. All right, Johnny, killer work with this track. So for anyone listening, remember when I was looking at J Mario's track earlier and I was like, hey, we need that little bit of a switch up near the end in the melody? Something exactly like this is what I was talking about. So what Johnny did here is usually we had the da-da-da-da-da-da, right? In this last drop, he added an extra note, so it was da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And we had that extra little bit of motion that's not too much that switches it up entirely and makes the listener lose track of everything, but it keeps them on their toes. It keeps us, with that little bit of extra evolution and development. So really, really great stuff. I'm seeing from the chat, Gliver saying, how did you make that bass? Really nice. And Jack's responding, it sounds like it's layered. Absolutely is layered. Tell you what, let me listen to this real quick and I might be able to give some insight onto that. So there are two different main layers, right? So we have that pluck one and then the wah sort of layer. I could be very wrong with this. It sounds like kind of like a Korgam 1 sort of bass to it. So it sounds like a lot of the presets that are in there. I would wager that it is one of those, but there are plenty of other synths that have kind of similar slappy bass presets to it. And then there's definitely like a sub layer underneath that as well. Whether that's part of Bark of Dog or you have your own dedicated layer, kind of tough for me to see without, really diving into the project. But however you've got them processed are, sitting really, really nicely. So in terms of some things to improve here, I think overall, like, your writing is on point. It's where it needs to be. I think your focus, Johnny, should be on your mixing and really creating clarity and separation in your elements. It's not as though like they're fighting with each other or there's too much or like it's really problematic right now, but I think you're at the point where it's time to start focusing on getting that final layer of polish. So if I'm listening, for example, in this intro, I noticed that some of those effects were just a little too loud. Like that little sort of thing probably came out a little bit more than it needed to. And as a result, like anyone listening on an iPhone, for example, is going to struggle to hear those lower atmospheres and stuff in comparison to these, these peaks that come out. So getting a little bit, more smoothness and kind of depth in this section, I think would help out a lot. Let's get to this drop. So right here, I love what you've done from a writing perspective, like having a lot of energy, a lot of like sustained notes, and then we get into that kind of like kick and bass focus drop without a lot of percussion or anything else. I think that all works really nicely. I think the risk though is that in this sort of build section, you have a lot of high-end frequency information collecting. And we get to the drop and we lose a lot of that high end. And for a contrast perspective, that's okay, but we still need to maintain a little bit of the energy and balance. So I would focus on adding some saturation and kind of high-end processing to that main baseline pluck that you have right here. All right, like get that thing even beefier, because when we cut everything else out, that needs to be able to stand up at the front of that stage and fill up the entire sense of space. So to be able to do that, it needs to have a lot of that power. More power here than it might have at the end of the track. So some automation is probably going to be the best bet for this. All right. Yeah, so let's see what else we got in the chat. You need saying maybe add some more side chain to the bass. Let's see what we got. Maybe just a little bit. Now, it will need to be super tight, because if we have like a long pumping sidechain, we're going to lose that rhythmic nature of the bass. But if we can get it to be just a little bit tighter in that low in between that kick and that bass, I think you are going to be able to bring up that groove just a bit more. And hearing from Jack, thinking the melody over the top, maybe a little bit more groove. Just like one last comment, so let me just recap really quickly what we got going on. So the last comment, I think it was from Jack, saying we could get a little bit more groove in the melody over here. So that da 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 da, I'm guessing that's what he was referring to, and I would agree. Maybe just a little bit more of a syncopated rhythm there should do the trick. Awesome. All right, seeing that Jack is saying in the chat that he's getting video unavailable. I'm hoping that is an isolated incident, so try refreshing it. If the rest of you are also getting that, let me know. Okay, you're okay now. Sweet. All right, guys, let's give it up for Johnny here. Great stuff on this track, and let's keep this party going. This next one we've got is from Danny Austin. It is called Time. Give this a little refresh, get that to work. All right. Love this image. That's beautiful. Little bus compressor. Roll down a little so you guys can get some of that. So Danny, killer groove, killer track here. I'm hearing that snare has like this little extra pre-hit to the start of it. I would say like take that out on every 2 snare and only have that on the 4 snare to kind of give us a little bit more push and pull across the track. Oh yeah, seeing from Jack in the chat here, this is the best he's heard from you. Amazing. Great placement of the pads in this section. Let's get the head here. Awesome. All right, Danny, great groove, great sound selection and vibe. Really liking the melody that you have in at the end there too. So a couple of things that I would like to see. Let's get some more reverb and delay on this melody right here. The rest of your track has a lot of space, a lot of atmosphere and stuff to it. I did lose a little bit of that, so some delay and some reverb should do the trick there. At this section, I'd also work on bringing out that snare. I kind of lost a lot of the power of the snare to the thickness of the leads. So maybe some extra saturation and volume on that snare, maybe a little bit of side chaining on those melodic and harmonic elements to allow that snare to cut through. I think that's going to be really nice. Now, if you're worried about, it taking away too much of the melody, I think that because you have such like a sequenced-based melody that has so much movement to it, if anything, those little breaks are actually going to be a little bit welcome because it's going to give a little bit more macro rhythm and push and pull to that melody. Awesome. Everything else is sounding really, really nice here. I think one thing that I am noticing like in this little section is that there is just a little bit of, muddiness going on in that kind of low mid, that 200 hertz to 500 hertz range. So see if you can just, take out a little bit of that with an EQ in some of the less important layers and maybe make up for it by boosting it in the more important layers there. You just won't quite, that'll allow us to get a little bit less conflict, but still maintain the same amount of thickness there. Everything else is sitting really nice. I'd say, just kind of final comment on that, like let's get a little bit more side chaining and things like the pads as well there, just to give us just, again, as much kind of up and down rhythm as we can possibly get. So agreeing with people in the chat, great trance vibes, got some of that 90s feels to it. Yeah, great stuff, Danny. Great job with this track. You guys have already done it, but if anyone has anything else, feel free to drop it in the chat. Let's give it up for Danny one last time, and let's keep it going. So just a quick time check. I see that we're at the 52-minute mark here, and I'm sitting on 8 tracks left. If you are in the chat right now, if you're part of this chat and you see that your track is up here, let me know. I will 100% make sure we get to it. Otherwise, I'm going to get through as many as we can in the hour, and then we'll just, as usual, have to kind of save those extras for, for next time. But like I said, if you're in the chat now and you haven't had your track reviewed and you see it up here, let me know, and I will 100% make sure that we get to it before this hour is done. All right, so this next one is from Nebuchad. We got Paradise Laundry. Love this image right here. That's just absolutely hilarious and still has like such a great vibe to it. So getting a quick question before I actually go. Seeing from Mike, is 4th tab the drive home? It absolutely is. I will pop that right up next here so that we get to you, Mike, for sure. Awesome. All right, here we go. Let's see what we got. Got this one as well. Really cool atmospheres and vibe on this one for sure.
Vibrations.
That vocal atmosphere, that like reverb is just really, really top notch. This could go in a horror film. Good stuff. I think the sound selection here is really nice. I think one thing that I'd like to see is like a little bit more of a strong relationship between the melody and then that kind of sustained like mid-range bass layer that you've got going on. So either by taking the melody and then making more of those bass line notes match the melody, or vice versa, looking at those bass lines and moving your MIDI notes of the melody to match that bass line, I think they could end up being a little bit stronger. I am getting just a little bit of tonal conflict there. But like I said, the actual sound choice is spot on right there. It gives us a really, really cool vibe and stuff. So I just, focus on reworking either the bass, that kind of sustained mid-range bass, or the melody in that section. I'd also bring up your drums and your hi-hats, not the kick. The kick is like perfect, but I'd bring up everything else probably by like 6 to 10 decibels in volume. We need to just get those a lot louder, a lot more present in the mix. Awesome. The final thing I'll probably add for this is, like I said earlier, the low end of that kick is really nice. I'm getting some strong power out of that. I would like a little bit more top end to that kick. It almost sounds as though the top was like filtered out, and it may have been, it may just be part of the sample. But I would at the very least like find like a top kick sample that you filtered out everything below like 250 hertz or so. Maybe even like below 500 hertz. Just something else to lay in there that gives us a little bit more cut through on the top. So guys, let's give it up for Nebuchad. Drop it in the chat if you've got any other suggestions. Just saw one from Glibber trying a little ARP somewhere. I think that could for sure be cool, so definitely give that a shot. Great stuff, great track. Let's keep it going. So this next one is from Mike. I see that you just dropped an updated version in the chat here, so I'm going to grab that and move that over here. Thanks for being active. Thanks for being on top of it here, Mike. And let's see what you got. So as always, let me know if there's a certain section you want me to skip ahead to. And here we go. Love the retrowave images, by the way. Cool sound selection here. Whatever synths you're using and stuff, great choices. Yeah, great drums, great atmosphere. One thing I do feel is like the groove of that snare might be dragging us behind just a little bit. Like I felt like your synths are, doing a good job of pushing that beat forward. That snare seems like it's just hitting a little bit behind the beat, and it's getting us to kind of lag back a bit. Now, while it gives us like a really cool, smooth riding vibe, and if that's what you're after, totally fine. I think that this track could be dancier and more energetic if you just take that snare and shuffle it forward in the, in the groove a little bit. Same thing actually goes for the kick. That kick is coming in just a little bit late. And then that melody, same thing there. It's just not quite in groove with the rest of the track. So I would try like extracting the groove from your like main synth layer and applying that to some of the other layers maybe. Just something to get all these different moving elements to be really tight with each other. See what else we got. Final thing I'll say is from those drums, I think they could come up in volume a little bit. And then also take away a little bit of the reverb on them. They sound just a little bit wet and far back, so I think a little bit more presence on them is going to help add to that energy that I was looking for. And then at some point, some sort of rhythmic active hi-hat line. I don't think I heard one of those really cutting through. I hear, actually, now that I've mentioned it, I do hear some cymbals super far back in the mix. I would add a lot of volume to those cymbals to help bring them forward and make that like really drive the energy. I'm seeing that you had some trouble with the melody, bringing the notes closer, blurred out the note distinctions. Totally. What's going on in those sorts of situations? I'm sure this is something everyone's run into at some point, right? Like when we have too many notes in there, it just suddenly sounds blurry. We lose track of what's going on. This almost always has to do with the envelope or some form of reverb or delay, right? So if you've got a long tail reverb or a delay with a lot of feedback or something to it, when we put too many mini notes close together, those reverb tails and those delay tails start swallowing up the original dry signal. So one option is to sidechain your reverb or delay back to the dry signal, which allows it to consistently cut through. Now, if that's not the case, if it's just because of the notes themselves and it has nothing to do with reverb or delay, the second thing to look at is the release time on your synths. So long release times are going to give us like a tail after we let go of that note. So if we have those fast ARP patterns, long release times often end to a lot of buildup, blurriness, and muddiness. So anytime I'm working with an ARP pattern, unless I'm intentionally trying to wash things out, I keep that release time relatively fast, like under 100, under 80 milliseconds or so. Awesome stuff here, Mike. Let's give it up for Mike in the chat. Great job with the drive home. Really, really cool vibes. Stoked to see you got a hashtag revelation here in the chat. Love to see it, Mike. Great stuff with this, guys. Everyone give it up for Mike. Drop that love in the chat. And let's get one last track in here. I know we are just at the top of the hour, and it's time to get going on this Beat Lab. But I know that we've also got Naked Ambition here in the chat. Want to make sure that, of course, if you're in this chat and you were part of this, that you are getting to hear your own feedback. So with that, let's go ahead and get this one going. The final track for Feedback Friday, I think, again, like I said, if you're in this chat, you want your track dropped, let me know and we can get to it. But otherwise, guys, let's get one more in, and then we're going to take a quick break and get into that Beat Lab. Take us ahead a little bit for this one. Great groove here. Okay, so really cool vibe here. I think definitely got some cool tech warehousey sort of house vibes to it. Really digging that side of it. I think the biggest thing to focus on for you here is just going to be in the mix down, and specifically in the concept of dynamic range and depth. So what I'm hearing right now is I heard everything really, really smoothly. It sounds like, something that might come out of using something like the pink noise mixing technique, where our actual frequency balance is spot on. Like the lows are balanced with the mids and the highs and all that sort of stuff. But what's going on is that I don't have that kind of front to back depth in the mix. So I'd focus on getting, the main elements, like the core drums, like your kick and your snare, maybe just a couple decibels louder. Same thing for those, main vocal chops are the most important layers in there. And then take some of those other ones and just reduce it a little bit. I don't think you're going to affect your overall frequency balance too much, but you are going to add a little bit more front to back kind of stretchiness going on here. Awesome. Let's see if I can think of anything else here. So one thing I am noticing is that bass line and that kind of low mid section isn't quite cutting through the way that I need it to. It's like the top end textures of it that would allow us to make clarity of it are really being eaten up by those hi-hats. So consider just adding some extra saturation and thickness to that kind of mid-range bass as well. Along doing that though, I would just make sure you listen carefully, because sometimes that can add extra muddiness to the track. We don't want that. We just want that kind of like mid-range added clarity and beef. All right. So that is it for this one. I'm seeing one last person in the chat. We got Kisol. I know that you're part of the group, so we can absolutely give your track a quick listen here. I am going to make this one relatively quick just in the sake of time so that we can get going with this beat lab. But like I said, because you're in the chat, because you're here, I got it. Unfortunately, I'm seeing that this one was actually not found. So if you don't mind hitting me with the private link, that would be best. Oh, and I'm seeing from Naked Ambition in the chat that this was not mixed yet other than EQ. So that totally explains all of that. So, obviously, with what stage you're at in this track, most of it probably should have, most of my feedback probably should have been catered towards the writing, which honestly was really solid. I think the one thing that you might be able to do to keep it interesting is maybe mess around with a little bit of pitching on those vocal chops or formant shifting, that sort of stuff, just so that they have a little bit more evolution in there. All right, so we got this one from Kisol here, 628 in motion. Let's see what we got. 30 seconds in, I will definitely do that. Great vibe, great groove. Love those vocal chops. I think these drums would be really nice with just some good stereo width on them. Right now, like between that bass and those drums, it's all right here. Yeah, if like that clap and those drums are really wide, but we have that space in the center for that kick and that bass, this is gonna be a heater of a track. I think your kick and bass groove is pretty strong here too. Maybe a little bit more sign chaining on that kick and bass just to get that bass just a bit more out of the way, I think will help out. Let's get some extra reverb and delay on that new lead line that comes in there. Da 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 da. That sort of thing. Like if that just keeps going on there, you're gonna have a lot of nice tension, and then that keeps people kind of waiting for more to happen, which is a great feeling at the very end of a track here. Awesome, guys. Let's wrap it up for the feedback today. Let's get ready to go into the beat lab. I'm super stoked about this. One more time, let's give it up for Kisol. Let's give it up for everyone who had a track play today. Really great job, guys. So if you're watching this video later on and I didn't get to your track, fret not. You guys are going to be at the top of the list for that next stream. If you want to be included in that feedback, just make sure that you're dropping your chat in or dropping your link in that next Feedback Friday. So I don't go back to previous Feedback Fridays for links because I know those might be out of date. I want to keep it nice and fresh. So if I missed you and you do want to be up next, just make sure that you're continuously submitting on that Feedback Friday. Like I said before, like I'm going to say it again, I will make sure that, I'm not sleeping on anyone. If you get missed one week, you will be there the next week for sure. All right, guys, really great stuff with this feedback, session here. Let's give ourselves a quick break. I'm going to get some water, catch my breath for a second. It's currently 12:08 Pacific time. I'm going to go off stream for about 7 minutes, and we'll be back at 15 minutes after to kick off this beat lab. So in the meantime, get yourself situated, maybe open up your DAW if you're trying to follow along and create your own beat. Otherwise, feel free to kick it for just a few minutes. Like I said, we're going to go on break for about 7 minutes, and I will be back at 15 minutes after here. Catch you guys soon, and get ready. It's going to be fun.